welcome to Salmon's Pizzeria, your slice of Scottish football, which is officially back. League Cup groups are finished and the league action has begun. Matchday 1 of 38, tantalising games to come. Two teams in transition in Rangers and Hibs. The return of the Dundee Derby, Celtic laying down a marker already. Welcome into anyone that's in the chat. Feel free to leave any comments, any discussion points you want to bring up. We'll chuck them on the screen and go through any of them. But first, I'll introduce you to my guests. There is an apology as well. We are supposed to have Ethan from the Dens Park Choir. He may join at some point, so we will chuck him in if he does. But if not, it's all good. Representing Rangers then as one of the teams we will be discussing this weekend, we've got Scott Kerr from Not Another Rangers podcast. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm alright, Stu. I'm fine. Not been a great weekend, but not been a bad weekend, if you can put that in perspective. But I'm looking forward to this tonight.
And representing Motherwell as she always does, but part of our very own podcast, we've got Jenna. Jenna, how has your weekend been so far? You're on mute.
That's embarrassing.
That's all right.
Loads of live shows, but yeah, not bad. Mull hasn't fully ruined my weekend yet. Keyword being yet.
Wow. As I say, yeah, we've got a full weekend to go through. We have got one game that obviously comes tomorrow, but we jumped on today, so we'll probably do another roundup at some point to go over the Aberdeen game. We've got a few people in the comments already, which is amazing to see. We will start at Rangers then, Care, as the first game that kicked off the season, live on Sky Sports. Very, very tough game for Rangers, obviously Hearts away. A team, like I said in the intro, in transition, but for you, you know, when you see that lineup come out, how disappointing is it that all the rebuild that's been talked about by Clermont and Rangers fans all over social media, you know, the team lineup itself only having one new signing in it?
Not great, Stuart. Not great at all. We've waited all summer. He's got rid of a few players from the old guard, as you say, and some of the big earners off the wage bill and away elsewhere. There's still some there he has to get rid of, but I wasn't looking forward to the game when I seen the lineup. I thought, same old, and Hearts probably should have scored early on. They never. We kind of grew into the game, but with a few chances. But to be honest with you, they didn't really deserve any more than a draw. And if I'm being totally honest, I'm not looking forward to the rest of the season if the lineup's going to be very similar to the one it was yesterday.
Yeah, Jen, I know it's a game you watched as well. You know, I thought Rangers started off a little bit shaky. If we're honest, Hearts seemed to be creating the earlier chances. Is this a case of it? You know, it might be a case of both, but is this a case of that? You know, you've got a much better Hearts team now that you know they've improved well. We'll go over a few of the positions because there's a few players I want to touch on. But is this a case that a lot of teams, maybe especially at home, seeing Rangers as a chance to go out and hurt them, as opposed to previous years where you know a point you would be glad with? Hearts almost came out of this a bit disappointed.
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest, because you were right in saying that Hearts have greatly improved over the transfer window. They were playing extremely well, especially at home. You want that to go in your advantage, especially when playing the likes of Celtic and Rangers. But at the same time, Rangers are a weakened side. I think things went in the Hearts' favour in terms of that. I was surprised they didn't walk away with 3 points, to be honest. I fancied Hearts' chances. I did think Rangers were going to get better than before the game. But similarly, as Scott was saying, when I seen the lineup, I was a bit confused by it. But I thought first game of the season, I know Rangers had a couple of pre-season friendlies, but that's not really a true test to see how strong their squad is. League games are. But to be honest, I'm really not sure what to make of Rangers this season. I hope they do better for their own sake, just because they have a lot to prove to themselves, especially with Celtic. They are extremely strong going into the first game of the season. I don't think it's looking well for them, though.
Yeah, and we've got a question straight away from Davey Care from your very own podcast as well. Question in regards to Rangers. Why does Clermont persist with a high line when he doesn't have the defenders to do so? Ball over the top or in behind slices us open every time. Something that I think I noticed definitely was the defenders seem very, very weak through balls over the top. I don't know. Watching Suter from Hearts and you know Dundee United before that, I always thought he can be a very good siege defender. He can deal with balls in the air. He's very good in the air in both boxes. Ben Davies, I've never been too sure on, if I'm honest, but it seems that both of them were being really, really stung by those long balls.
But it's not the first time it's happened. It happened away last season. It happened. It's been happening for a long time. Even just straight running through the Rangers defence, through the midfield, people get away with it very easily. Listen, Rangers aren't a big achievement to get points off of to beat anymore. People turn up and see that Rangers lineup and think it's not going to be a hard game. I think we've got a chance of getting 3 points. Doesn't matter if it's at Ibrox or if it's away from home, because that's the way people look at Rangers just now. They're not a great side, and I don't know what Clement's doing. If you could tell me what Clement's doing, then I'd be happily listen. But I don't know his structure. I don't know. I don't see any patterns of play. I don't know why we hold the high line, because we've no pace at the back. Tavernier's legs have went. Suter's never been the quickest. Ben Davis, I thought Vargas just kind of bullied him all through the game. That's why I get taken off. And Yilmaz does okay, but he's better going forward than his defensively. And I think Connor Barron was our best player, but he was covering a lot for the defenders because they were getting dragged about. So I don't really know what Clement's doing, and I think he has to figure it out quickly, because I know he's signed an extension to his contract, but that will not count for nothing if he doesn't start winning football matches.
Yeah, and I mean, judging from the Rangers fans in the chat, we're going to have to hope Rangers drop more points, because it's certainly getting us some good points in the chat. Hopefully they'll be just as good when they're back on the winning ways. Jenna, how impressed were you with Hearts? They seem to have signed well. The talk of the game pretty much during and after was Gerald Taylor, the right back, who I believe he's on loan from Saprissa in Costa Rica, and he was, I mean, it's so much athleticism going forward. He's pacey. I don't think Cortez got past him on a single occasion. Cortez, I know, does like to come inside a lot, but I think he was doing that purposely because he didn't want to go on the outside against Taylor. And as an attacking threat, he was giving them so much space and width up the park as well.
No, definitely. Like, having players of that calibre is going to work in Hearts' favour. I was really impressed by him. To be honest, he's a player I didn't know much about before I saw him playing for Hearts yesterday, and I must say I was greatly impressed. Hearts have really went hard in on their recruitment this season. Likes of, obviously, we've highlighted already, likes of Blair Splattle as well, that we kind of kindly donated to Hearts as well. He came on, I thought he played quite well as well, pardon the pun. But really, I think they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. I don't see Rangers be the only ones that struggle at Tynecastle this season. I think it'll be quite a lot of teams will struggle to try cut them open and get in and try to take 3 points off Tynecastle.
Yeah, and Peter McKay as well, our resident Ross County fan, saying from what he watched, Jan Dander's absolutely proven him correct care. Is it remiss of Rangers to maybe overlook a lot of these guys that, and not just Rangers, Celtic have been doing it of late as well. Players in the Scottish Premiership get probably a harsher look at them in terms of the standard from the outside as well. Do you think that there are these players that can come in and do well at the top clubs straight away, or do you think that they need these stepping stones almost, that we need to go, Ross County to Hearts to the old firm, or would you be more than willing to take someone like a Jan Dander, like a Gerald Taylor, and go and give them their chance earlier?
I would, Stuart. I think there's players there who could walk into our team at the moment. I think there's a few players in the Scottish Premiership. Luke McCowan's one of them. Lee Muller at Motherwell, who probably Jenna knows better than myself, but he looks a good player as well. There's a few other boys in Scottish football you think they could do a job with, because when you see our side at the moment, they're no great shape. Do you know that way? Scott Wright gets a game with us, that kind of tells you everything. But Jan Dander, to me, surprised Hearts got him for free. I thought the boy's been a good player for the last couple of seasons. Ross County probably can say he's a luxury player at times, but he does the business for you, and he's very technically very good. But he's good body movement. He's side to side, and he confuses defenders. The boy Taylor got a lot of write up yesterday. Right, he's very athletic. He's quick, but he runs in straight lines for me. I think if he comes up against somebody better than Cortez, he'll struggle. I think that's the issue with him. Cortez wasn't great yesterday. I thought when Maturno come on, he'd done a wee bit better pace-wise against him, and he kind of faded a bit. Maybe it was just his legs going, but I thought he was okay. But I think you'd have to give the boy a good 6 to 12 games to judge him properly. I think playing great against Rangers, Stuart, nowadays isn't great. It's not to say you've hit the ground running, because it's in the day you're up against Cortez, who's been injured for the season, and he brings on Matondo, who's no great shape. So if he does the same against Celtic, Aberdeen and Hibs, then you can maybe say the boy's got a good future in Scottish football, but time will tell.
Yes, and I'm delighted to also say we have got our other guest who has joined. He obviously just didn't want to chat about Rangers, which is absolutely fine. Who does? We have got Ethan from the Dens Park Choir. Ethan, how are you doing, my friend?
I was going to say great, but to be honest, I'm still a bit frustrated from the full-time result. But other than that, no, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No, absolutely. We are going to get to the Dundee game as well, of course. But it was a good effort for Scottish football. I think everyone would agree with that. But we are going to just move on from Rangers. We're going to touch on Motherwell really quickly. I don't know how long Jenna's going to want to talk about Motherwell personally, but we'll give it a go. Scottish football kicking off this weekend again. Then Jenna, we have the first 0-0, which was pretty exciting 0-0 in Rangers and Hearts. The second game, you're thinking, well, there's got to be goals here, and we're served up another 0-0. Judging from it was one I caught a bit of the highlights. There wasn't too much going on. What was your sort of surmisation of this game?
To be honest, it was absolutely dreadful. Watching it was boring. There was just no effort made at all from Motherwell, if I'm being honest. As much as I love my team, I'll be the first one to call them out when I see something go horribly wrong, and that is what happened. We lacked up front. I know I said previously I was feeling quite hopeful about the signings. I thought they showed a lot of promise. But to be honest, when we're playing like Edinburgh City, obviously they're going to show promise. Their first real competition against Partick Thistle and then obviously Ross County yesterday, they fell flat. There's not a bit of pace amongst them. Yeah, they can run about fine, but to be honest, there's just not a striker in any of those young guys that we've signed lately. There's not a football player amongst them.
I'm going to stay with you as well because, judging from what Kettlewell basically thought that Ross Laidlaw kept them in. I thought Laidlaw had a very good game. He's fast. It's weird to say he's fast becoming an underrated keeper because I think he gets overlooked quite a lot, Laidlaw, and he's always having good seasons. He's always high up in the save percentages. But one thing I did want to pick up on the chat because I know a lot of people in our chat would be watching this boy is Lennon Miller. You weren't too impressed with Lennon Miller yesterday.
No, honestly, if Rangers were to go for him based on yesterday's game, we'd be getting £300 for him, never mind 300,000, 3 million. Every time he made a bad decision, I could feel another zero coming off the price tag for him. Usually he plays well for us. I'll sing his praises normally every day of the week. I don't know what it is, but yesterday he just seemed to collapse under pressure. I don't know if the rumours going about that people are looking at him, maybe getting to him a little bit, or if it's the pressure of knowing that in our midfielder, he's really only a really good option. Andy Halliday, he's a 60-minute player. We can't rely on him despite the experience he brings. He's more defensive. He's not really creating chances as much as he'd probably like to. It's not great view. And I don't know if it's maybe getting to him or if he just maybe had a bad day at the office. It happens to the best of us. But normally I wish I could come and sit here and talk the boy up. But I can't after yesterday. I can't. I'm not going to lie to you.
Stuart, you're in mute.
Fantastic. How can the host do it, eh? Brilliant from me. Just coming back to the Motherwell game there, Jenna, Lee's just raising the point there. Do you think it's just his age that it's hard to keep up consistency at 17? I know you've been a very big fan of his. What's these young kids are gonna have those sort of games from time to time, aren't they?
No, definitely. I try not to be too harsh on him, especially because of his age. He is still a young boy. Sometimes it's hard to remember how young he actually is. The fact he got Player of the Month, had to get given a bottle of Schlur instead of champagne, kind of cemented it for me. That one I thought was quite funny from Motherwell. But again, the lad's only 17. I don't even know when it is he turns 18. I can't remember if it's this year or next year. He is a really young player. He stepped into those boots about 16-ish, straight from high school, straight into first team football and starting in first team football as well, never mind just being involved in the score sheet. It has a lot of responsibility. That's why I don't know if it's maybe the pressure is getting to him, knowing that he's one of our only reliable options. He's not daft. You'll see that when he's playing on the pitch. You'll see what's around about him. Kettle will probably saying that to the boys in dressing room as well. You need to fix this. He's outperforming a lot of you. He's 17-year-old. You're 28. You're 30. Whatever. It's a lot of pressure. And to be honest, I don't blame the boy for having a bad day. He is young. It'd be wrong of me to come on here and slate him completely. Have at the same time though, a bad performance is a bad performance no matter what. It is a shame, but I'm hoping he turns it around for our next game because he just wasn't himself. I know he can do better, and it's said with love. So if you have no chance he's watching, I still love you, Lynn. I promise.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring Ethan in just quickly. Yep, sorry. I thought I had to do the unmute. Now the mute's thrown me completely off. To be honest, it's embarrassing. But Ethan, just on sort of Motherwell, because I don't know how much you got to watch of the Motherwell game from a Dundee point of view. Are you know, Dundee, Motherwell certainly a team that you could be thinking that Dundee are going to be aiming to get ahead of again if you're going to finish top 6. Is there anything early on that you're worried about from teams like Dundee and Ross County? I know it's very early to talk about, but what are your sort of initial thoughts?
No, it is very early, but from what I've watched from Stuart Kettlewell's progress as a manager since he was in the fold at Motherwell, to me they've always looked like a team that were on the up. Now I don't watch them consistently enough for that to be a case. It's just from what I've seen from the outside view, and I felt they have recruited well overall. I know they've lost some key players. I think missing Blair Spittle's quite a heavy blow for them, but they took Zach Robinson from us, and the feeling amongst Dundee, a lot of Dundee fans, myself included, is Zach Robinson's a really good prospect. He's maybe not where he needs to be right now, but he's still about 22 years old, and you can see for us in the Championship, he was absolutely colossal in getting us that Championship title. So we think a season under his belt in the Premiership last season, although he wasn't the main man, we all kind of felt he just needs a run and he'll get going, and Motherwell seemed to be the team that have offered him that chance. But elsewhere, like I say, I think there's a lot to like about Motherwell and a lot to like about Kettlewell specifically, and you're right, we're going to have to be above Motherwell if we're going to try and get into that top 6 again. I mean, I think Motherwell were the ones that run us closest, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was Hibs on final day. It was Motherwell did us the favour with the Shane Blaney last minute goal. But I was much more impressed with Motherwell last season than I was Hibs anyway. So no, they're a team, like, from what I've seen, they're on the up. Taking a bit of damage maybe lately, like missing some key players like that. Because I know Liam Kelly, goalkeeper, he didn't have the best of seasons last season, but that's still a Scotland internationalist. That's some now out the frame now at Rangers. There's quite a lot of work to be done in that regard when you miss key players. It's more than just replacing quality. Sometimes these players, your new recruits, they'll need a bit of time to settle in. But no, they're certainly a team that have a lot of potential in my eyes.
Yes, absolutely. Great points indeed. And listen, Lee saying you're not alone there, because his hot take in our earlier podcast was that Motherwell were going to finish third. It's early days, you know, they can turn it around, and the new boy's just in the door, isn't he? I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name, but he is just in the door. So there's plenty of time to go yet. Kerr, looking at Ross County then, you know, where do you see their season going? And again, you know, I'm not saying just on now, but from what they've signed, I know you keep your ear to the ground a little bit on these things. But you know, good keeper, good defense from. Well, I mean, certainly Peter was impressed by the defense, saying that looks solid at the back. Akil Wright, couple of loose touches, but thinks he could be a big player for them. Are you thinking Ross County can steer clear of the relegation fight this year?
I think they will, Stu. I think they will steer clear. I think they might be finished 9th or 10th. I don't see them finishing near the bottom. I think they've signed a couple of good players. Ryan Hill looks decent up top. They all seem to bring, even though they're relocated up the top of Scotland, they seem to get players who are decent to come up there and play their football. We also still get Jordan White up front, who's a handful for defences. We know that ourselves. He might not be the quickest, but he's a nuisance. He can get the odd goal against you, causes bother. So I think, and Don Kibbe's a decent manager, I have to say. I quite like Don Kibbe. I think they'll be fine. I think he gets them playing attractive football and he wants them to go forward. And I think they'll be okay. Conor Randall's still kind of pulling the strings even though he's getting older, but I think Ross County will be fine. I think they'll be above St Johnstone and whoever else is at the bottom, I'm not sure, but I think they'll be fine this season.
Fair points, and now it's going to be Ethan's big moment, because we're going to move on to the Dundee Derby on Sky Sports straight away, which seems to be something that Sky don't really give the Edinburgh Derby too much of, it's got to be said. But maybe they will now, because it was a fantastic advert for our game. It was like a basketball match at times, absolutely end to end. Both times Dundee United scored, I thought Dundee were just starting to take control, and then they were just completely destroyed by the goals and took time to settle again. Trapanowski obviously with the first goal. Got to say Dundee United's goals, even I know you might not like to admit it, but they were very good passages of play in terms of maybe not the defending, but just in terms of the awareness of the striker, just to put in Trapanowski for the first goal, and then you know the ball across the box is a fantastic one for the second. What's your sort of overall riding thoughts on the game before we just break it down a little bit?
Well, come full time, I found myself agreeing that a draw was probably a fair result, but at the same time, that first 70 minutes from a Dundee point of view was absolutely torture. Felt like we never really got into the game the way we wanted to until we made the substitutions. The substitutions being bring on the likes of your Scott Tiffany's, Josh Mulligan's, and Curtis Main. Because the difference, what prior to that, for me, Dundee were far too conservative, far too much on the defensive side. We are a much better team than that first half display would suggest. But just for some reason, we seem to lack the golf to have a go at it. And come those changes, we had players that love to drive at defenders, and that seemed to be kind of catching it off guard. Is when we start driving at them, bringing the game to them that way, forcing the issue, so to speak. And that's where we enjoyed the spell. The last 20 minutes of the game, I felt we were going to go through and win it. I felt there was only one team in it for the last kind of 15 minutes. So to claw back, to get the 2-2 draw, I've got to be happy after the initial display for the first hour or so. But it is disappointing to think that we came into that with so much optimism. I said before that it's the most confident I ever felt about going to Tannadice, and I've never even seen us win there in living memory, and that's a streak that'll have to go on. As of that result, we're going to be at least 20 years at Tannadice without a victory. So, yeah, on one hand, I'm quite disappointed we didn't win. I felt we deserved a stronger performance, expected a stronger performance from the overall 90. But given how the start of that game went, I'm delighted that they managed to claw back, show the character, show the fight, and like I say, could have very well been us that won it come the full 90. There was a great chance from Curtis May at the end. I still have no idea how he's not found the back of the net. But like I say, it was the likes of your Scott Tiffany's and Josh Mulligan's that rubs off on the rest of the team. That's what made the difference for me.
Yeah, so I mean that chance at the end was ridiculous, to be honest. Although I don't think it's even miss of the weekend, because I don't know if you've seen Dylan Venter yet for Hibs, but he somehow defends an open goal. I don't know how he doesn't put the ball in the back of the net. So it's not the worst miss of the weekend just yet. And listen, we're going to come back to you, Jenna. I know you watched the game as well. Looking on maybe the Dundee United side of things, how did you think they went? Because I'll be honest, they were a lot better than I thought they were going to be. We've said in the chat a few times about their signings. We were very, I guess, intrigued to see how they were going to perform, because they have plucked a lot of players from foreign leagues, and it's always interesting to see how they're going to cope with Scottish football. Babudski, I was a bit disappointed in, because he's got such a high caliber of where he's come from, the Barcelona youth setup and stuff like that. So I was really excited to see him. I didn't think he was fantastic, but I thought Trapanowski was brilliant for most of the game. What was your sort of thoughts on Dundee United?
I thought they did quite well, especially since just coming up from the Championship again. They've kind of yo-yoed the past couple of years, going up, down, almost nearly every year. It's always a certain time Dundee or Dundee United's going down, another one's coming up. So it's nice to actually see he's back both at the same time. I think it's going to start turning into a Batman Bruce Wayne thing. We can't see both of them in the same room at the same time. But jokes aside, though, I did really think they played well. I was quite surprised they didn't come out victorious with it, to be honest. I really thought they would get ahead of things much quicker. But end of the day, I thought they did play really well. Quite happy to see Declan Gallagher still performing to high quality. And if he does ever want to come back and make peace at Fir Park, I'll welcome him with open arms, I should say.
Brilliant. Scott, what about yourself on both teams, I guess, a little bit? I mean, Dundee United coming back up. I think maybe, I want to say Alex on the pod had predicted Dundee United to go straight back down, which will probably be music to Ethan's ears. But what about yourself? Are you thinking that Dundee United and again, it's so hard to keep saying, it's early days, it's the first game of the season, but we know Dundee are a good side. They certainly were last season. I think they've only improved. Dundee United maybe going to get to grips with the league this time round a lot quicker. You're on mute.
But
Sorry,
I said, Stuart, I hope Alex right. I hope we do go straight back down. No, I thought the game was a decent game of football. I thought Dundee gave United too much respect. I had Dundee winning this. I thought Dundee were a stronger team. On paper, Dundee like a stronger team. Listen, there's a few Dundee United players I've never seen before, like you said, and I was wondering what they're going to play like. They scored and Dundee equalised, and I thought they were back in this, and then United scored again, and Dundee kind of sat off them, didn't they? They didn't take the game to them. They've got boys. Dundee's got boys in the middle of the park. Lee mentioned that Leo Cameron and Luke McCone, who are tremendous footballers who can take a game to anybody. And I thought they were going to come back into it, but they never. But once they scored, I thought they were going to go and win this, but they never. And you mentioned Curtis Main. Listen, Curtis Main's missed these are chances, and that will tell you. But I think Dundee will improve. I think last season Dundee's problem was they got in the lead a lot of games and then let the lead slip. Today they fought back after losing the game, which is a different side of them you maybe never seen last season. So Dundee fans should be happy with that. But I thought on today's performance, especially the last 10-15 minutes, they should have won it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone could argue with that. Like Ethan said earlier, I think there was only one winner towards the end. Although Dundee United did get one final chance that he probably should have done better with. I'm going to come to Simon Murray in a minute because I know Peter's is dying to know your thoughts on him, Ethan. I can only imagine it's going to be good things. But I did see that from your Dens Park Choir account, you were saying about how the team struggle if Silla's not clicking. Was that a real big part of today, especially in the midfield where things just couldn't really get. I know McCowan was seemingly running around trying to do a lot himself, but it seems players around him weren't really pulling their weight.
Yeah, it's a struggle we had even last season at times. We had the two defensive midfielders through Malachi Boateng, who's now a permanent signing for Hearts on a 3-year deal. We had him on loan from Crystal Palace last season, and he was, for the first half of last season, him and Owen Beck were our two best players. And then Boateng suddenly found himself on the bench because Mo Silla just came into a game, took that spot and kept it his. But there were points when Silla was having a stinker, we could take him off, bring on Boateng, who's reliable, and the issue would fix itself. We don't have that alternative for Silla anymore, so it's absolutely a fair point to make that when Silla is playing and he's not on it, the rest of the team struggle to click because the rest of the team, they rely on Silla to kind of take that pressure off. So the rest of them have that kind of freedom to roam with the ball. And McCowan, for me, was only one of the three that was looking to drop deep. And I don't just mean dropping deep to get involved with challenges and whatnot, but just show for the ball. A lot of the derby today, Dundee had the ball in the back line, and it was sideways passing. They couldn't get further forward because there was no one trying to exploit the spaces in the middle. The middle of the park was completely vacant. So, like I say, it wasn't until that change around about the 70th minute where things began to change because you brought on players that were hungry, the players that wanted to drive, players that just seemed to have this understanding that they want to receive the ball and simply have a go at them. It really was as simple as that. And you were right when you said earlier about the United goals. From a United perspective, they're fabulous in terms of the ability to pull off of the deliveries, the assists, just the technical first time passes. And the awareness to know where the runners are coming from. But from our perspective, it was shambolic defensively, but especially the second goal, because the guy that's sent in the delivery is not only completely free, and we've got three defenders in the box in no man's land, but also the guy on the end of it, Miller Thompson, who, by the way, I thought was United's best performer today, completely free at the back post to tap it in. So with Dundee, there's several issues to address from today's match, but certainly we're needing another defensive midfielder as an alternative if Silla isn't on it. But to give credit to Mo Silla, that second half today, he did come onto his game, and it proved to be very beneficial for us. Yeah, you're on mute.
Wow, I just called it. I was going to mention the moment as well that maybe could have put the game out of sight for Dundee United when they break from a Dundee corner. It was flashbacks of was it the Champions League? Man United played against the Turkish team with Demba Ba up top. And, the old corner gets cleared and Bar's just 1-on-1 from the halfway line.
That's right.
It's just what it felt like. I couldn't believe the amount of space he had. Was it Trapanowski and he runs through it? And to be fair to Lyle Cameron, it's superb for a midfielder to get back and clear that off the line. It was fantastic.
It highlights what I said with our defensive positioning, how that was an issue. As I say, the three defenders, no man's land. That was another case. Volleys were committed forward. You actually, if you watch Sports Scene and you have the volume on, you actually hear Lyle Cameron at the end of it screaming, "Why is no one back?" Because if you watch the stem of that play, when was it Babunski, Trapanowski, whoever it was, whichever United player it was that had the ball from the halfway line to rush on forward, he's got at least 15 yards on Cameron. Cameron's got a lot of ground to make up before he can get beyond him, and he's obviously gotten the shot away. And McCracken's wiped him out, and Cameron's gotten behind to clear the ball. And you got to give credit to Lyle Cameron. It's excellent defending. For me, over the course of the game, I felt him in particular was too anonymous. But again, you've got to hold your hand up and say that was superb defending and great effort as well to sprint the whole way, make up the ground, and get there before. Because if that goes in, that's game over. That's 3-1. I don't think we'd have enough quality not enough quality, but not enough time to pull it back from 2 goals. So yeah, no, like I said, it highlights the defensive issue. But you've got to you certainly have to give your praise to Luke McCowan. Look, McCowan, Lyle Cameron.
Lyle Cameron, yeah, absolutely. And Jenna, I'm going to bring you in here as well because there's a question I wanted to ask, and I know Lee's got a question for Ethan, which I'm going to bring to him in a sec. On that chance then for Trapanowski, Ethan just mentioned there, McCracken does wipe Trapanowski out after the ball was gone. There seemed to be a VAR check, and I think maybe it was for whether it was in or out of the box. Where were you sit? Obviously, if it's out of the box, it's not. But is there a potential for a red card there? Maybe then, if it's out of the box, is it denying a goal scoring opportunity, or do you think it's fair enough that he still got the shot away? It didn't affect how he got the shot away.
I think, for me, honest, if that happened to one of my players, I'd be shouting red card, penalty, 3 points, deduction, just because you'd feel hard done to if nothing came out of it. But at the same time, though, if it goes against you, you're sitting there saying, it's not even fair. He kicked the ball anyway before he went down. No matter what way you're going to look at it, you're not going to be happy. To be honest, my first instinct when I watched it was just, he's lucky he's not been sent off for that. Or that was potentially a penalty, because again, it looks as if it might have been in the box, not really. Just, it was a bit of a weird one. I'm dying to see if anything does come out off the back of it, see what the press say is about it, if it does get any press attention, to be honest. But that was one of the main things from the game I saw. I was like, he's lucky, but if that was going against you, you'd be absolutely raging if that happened and you don't get anything for it.
They seem to pick and choose whether it matters you hit the ball before you're wiped out. And I think that's the biggest frustration. If we stick to one way, I think no one can argue. For me, I'm old school. I think if you do get the shot away, it shouldn't really matter what happens in the aftermath, because the play went to its natural conclusion anyway. But like I say, we need to pick one and stick to it, because like I say, that they pick and choose when it's a foul, when it's not. And I think that's more damaging than the actual challenge itself.
You've hit the nail on the head, Ethan, to be honest, because the inconsistency with refereeing standards is shocking, and I'm sure we could probably go on for a full live podcast ourselves just about that, even from the past couple of days, never mind for the rest of our season.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right as well. It's certainly one that I agree with Ethan and both of you really, that he gets the shot. As I say, it didn't affect his shot. It didn't make the shot any less powerful or anything like that. I think if he tries to go round McCracken, then he's taken out, you've got a different conversation to be had, but it's not what he does. He goes for the chip instead. So question for you then, Ethan, from Lee. Do you think Murray's got enough firepower for where you want to be? He's never been personally convinced with Curtis Main.
I think he is. I think you look at his career so far up to date, there was 23 goals for Ross County last season, a team that finished second bottom in the league. I always find it more impressive when you can score those kinds of numbers for a team that doesn't perform so well. They were second bottom in the league. You have a player that can score 20 goals in one of the high-end teams, that's fair enough. They're getting the service. For a team that struggles in the relegation battles, you manage to score those kinds of goals. I think you deserve much more praise. And his ability to score awkward goals specifically is something I noticed when I watched them back. We're talking difficult angles, awkward positions. He'll manage to score half volleys off his knee, the whole lot. Main, I don't think was ever signed to be said firepower. I think the vision last season was to have Curtis Main play alongside the goal scorer, which we had with Michael Mellon. But Michael Mellon, unfortunately, he suffered a pretty bad head injury against St Johnstone, and he struggled to get in the team from there on, because Scott Tiffany just seemed to hit a vein of form. But when something's working, when it's broke, you don't fix it. You keep it going. You keep it going strong. You keep that wave of momentum. So I think the plan is now you'll be looking to have Main and Murray together. Murray to feed off Main. Main will be the man, the big man, wee man tactic, the classic. Main will look to hold up the ball, will look to link up the play, and Murray will just feed off him. And yeah, Murray, I think he's got the firepower, the goals to his game that can send us to the next level we want to be. I saw a statistic well before we signed him, and I might get the number wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it was 52% of his goals in his career have came across his last two stints at Queen's Park and Ross County. Now, it's important to remember that Simon Murray, when he was at Arbroath, he was 22 years old. 22 years old coming into the professional game. He's came into the game late. He's 32 years old now, but he doesn't play like a 32-year-old. He's still very much energetic, and he's much more a mature and all-round better player than he was when we had him on loan 6 years ago. So he's a player for me. I wrote an article for BBC saying that the redhead ages like red wine. It's absolutely true in my eyes. So yeah, he's coming on to a much stronger game as his career progresses. I mean, we've got him on a 3-year contract, so I think it's a sentiment that's shared across the club. But yeah, there's a lot to like about Simon Murray, and certainly the goal scoring aspect. Well, that's going to be the main one. It's just unfortunate that he couldn't contribute anything today, because like we say about the Curtis Main chance, Murray should have had an assist there.
Yeah, and it would have been a tremendous assist as well, the outside of the right foot as well, wasn't it? Although I think he has big credit to take in the equaliser, because I think it's like a mix of him and McCowan, just both. Neither really give up on the chance. I know. I think he slips the ball into McCowan, doesn't he? And McCowan's cut back, bobbles loose. And how many times does that just bobble loose and it gets clear? But Murray is straight on it. He actually gets like a decent effort away that the keeper saves, and then obviously it's turned in at the back post. So it's
It's
just
an awkward chance.
yeah. And
Yeah.
how many times do half chances turn into goals? It's not very often, but if you've got someone like Simon Murray, maybe not very often turns into a little bit more often than it should.
And even the second equaliser, he wins the penalty.
Of course.
So he's
yeah,
involved in both. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just that pure energy. And well, let's talk about that really quickly, because we will move on to the Celtic game and then the St Mirren game. The penalty itself, I know a few people in the couple of chats I'm in were talking about a potential red card challenge there. I did say in our chat that challenge for me got worse every time I looked at it, because he doesn't really. I don't know if it's just the way Simon Murray moves the ball, but it doesn't seem like Ross Graham is looking at the ball. It's almost like he's looking at the feet of Simon Murray, and then clatters into him high up and on the ankle. It could have been a real sore one for Simon Murray to take.
Yeah, I mean, the studs seem to go straight into his ankle, and I've seen that given as a red before, and it's kind of what Jenna touched on earlier. It's consistency. Pick one, stick to it, but no, they kind of pick and choose. At the time, I'll be honest. At the time, I didn't even think it was a penalty. I thought he actually won the ball when I watched it the first viewing. So when I watched it back, yeah, I was thinking, very lucky that it did prove to be much more serious than it actually was. So for me, I'll be honest, I can take it or leave it. I don't mind it being a yellow card as long as that's going to stay consistent. But you just know, in Scottish football, we'll be watching a Hibs game next week, or a St Mirren game next week, or a Motherwell game next week. We'll see the exact same thing with a completely different outcome. And that's what frustrates me the most. I would love it if we could bring in some sort of system where we can just interview the referees at full time and try to justify these calls, and then we can layer it all together and try to work to get to the bottom of it and try and get to a layer of consistency. But unfortunately, it's they just seem to have no interest in doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. Kerr, final point on Dundee then. I want to get your thoughts on Simon Murray, because I know from previous chats you've always been quite a fan of his as well. How shrewd is that a bit of business then for Dundee, getting in someone as experienced but who's certainly hitting the peak of his form?
Yeah, it's a good move for Simon Murray, a good move for Dundee. I think he will score goals up there. Like Ethan said, he's scored goals the last few teams he's been with. He was done really well with Ross County last season. And like you said, they finished second bottom in the playoffs, but he banged in over 20 goals. It's a lot of goals for a team down that neck of the woods, because a lot of the games are under the cosh most of the time, but he's getting he's getting service, he's putting them away, so his chances are getting created, and they are less chances than maybe a club like Rangers or Celtic or Aberdeen or something like that, because they've got obviously better players. So it's a great move for Dundee. Get a very good move for Simon Murray, and I know he kept putting in the chat he wishes that Rangers went in for him. I don't know if that would ever happen, but I can understand why he says that, because he does get you goals, but it's his work rate off the ball, it's his movement. He's very, very clever, and he's a very intelligent football player.
He's a lot more creative than he gets credit for as well.
Yeah, he does. I have to say that enough. I didn't think it was a penalty either the first time I seen it today, but when I look back, it was. But I thought Ross Graham got the ball at first as well, and then it showed you a different angle, and he did get the studs, so the studs into his legs, so it was a penalty. But I don't think it was a red card. But I do agree with Ethan. I think things like this, they don't keep it consistency. A challenge like that next week will be a red card, or it might not even be a penalty. You just don't know with Scottish football. What they should do up here is, like the NFL do, when there's rule changes, they put out videos and tell people why they're making the changes and what the changes are going to be. They don't do that up here. They don't give us any reason to believe them, and any reason to trust them. Do you know that way? So change it the way they do stuff, and even let a referee do a press thing after it. Not have to be live, but just do something so we can say this is why this decision was made. But they don't do that, so the fans of teams always think referees are against you, and they probably aren't. But it's just the consistency, and some referees aren't good enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so we are going to move on then. The St Mirren Hibs game is going to be a tough one, because this sort of fell right between the two live games. So I was trying to catch as much of this as I can. It's probably going to be more of a chat about Hibs, I think, Jenna, in terms of where they're currently at. We did have the Long Bangers podcast on, Matty from the Long Bangers podcast of Hibs, and he was, I'd say cautiously optimistic about the season ahead, but it seems to be the same old Hibs problems of they're sort of in the game, and then as soon as they concede the goal, they just utterly collapse.
There's a reason why a phrase called "they've Hibsed it" exists. They Hibsed it again today, to be honest, to put it bluntly. And just kind of off the back of what we were saying about the referees as well, I know it's kind of circling back, but I think one of the best things we could do for that is just do what they do in rugby and have the refs mic'd up. They would never do that in Scotland, but it's fun to dream about it. But like going back to Hibs, just as you were saying, like I think the guys that were on the other day there, they've got the right idea about being cautiously optimistic. Hibs, they've been a bit up and down, a bit shaky the past couple of seasons. When you think of Hibs traditionally, you think of one of the biggest teams in Scotland, you expect top 6 at a minimum, if not maybe top 4 even for Hibs, but they've just not lived up to that. Again, as you were saying, they conceded and they just seem to absolutely collapse after that. I know it's first game of the season, long way to go, but at the same time though, if the writing's on the wall quite early, it's what do you do with it?
Yeah, and talking of being sort of cautiously optimistic, then Ethan, Hibs another team that again you're going to realistically be battling for top 6 if that's where your plans are to be. Do you think this is maybe potentially giving you the edge? You know, Hibs are bringing in a lot new. I mean, it's the goalkeeper and is it 2 or 3 of the defence has completely changed. David Gray, you know, he's someone that's utterly adored at Hibs, and I think a few of them wanted him to get the job before Nick Montgomery got it. But he is still an inexperienced manager, and when you sort of put all these things together, Dylan Vente is sort of flat to deceive at times. I know they've got the Ukrainian boy back now who was very good before, but all of these things are sort of mixing up. It sort of spells good things, I'd say, again early, but good things maybe for Dundee in terms of a chase for a top 6 spot.
Yeah, Hibs for me are a very, very curious case. I understand David Gray might have a bit more credit in the bank compared to others because of like well, he's a Hibs legend, isn't he? I mean, he won them the first Scottish Cup in over a century. But for me, I think that when you take the job to be a Hibs manager, it's there's absolutely no job security there, is there? I mean, you think about how much time the previous managers have had. I think, to be fair, they tried to give Johnson a bit more time than he probably should have gotten, but Montgomery didn't even get a summer window to fulfil a rebuild. I think a Jack Ross getting into a cup final and then getting sacked before that, you know, and Sean Maloney just a matter of months. So to have all these constant and this comes strong from a Dundee fan because I've witnessed my fair share of squad rebuilds, our experiences with rookie managers. If you're wanting to cement down with a philosophy, you have to stick with it. You can't, like I say, keep kind of mixing the pot every now and then, hoping the same methods, expecting a different result. They've got to stick with what they believe in and give it time. Nothing grows overnight. So I'm very surprised we went with Gray, given the inexperience. I would have thought they would have went for someone more of an experienced field because, as we say, this is a club that's wanting to challenge rivals' hearts to get in these third, fourth place positions, to get in these cup runs, to try and really make something of themselves. And I don't have a problem with experienced managers personally. I often say that sometimes it just, rather than pointing out the inexperience they've got, you can lean on the fact that they perhaps have fresh and new ideas. But ultimately, like we say, historically, they just don't seem to give managers enough time. And I hope they do give David good time. I would like to see how this all can, what this can come to be at its best picture. But like I say, it's a very curious case. And I just get this horrible feeling for Hibs that Gray doesn't have particularly a long shelf life, and we're just going to rinse and repeat the same old story. So, from a Dundee perspective, yeah, it's great. I was told quite a lot that if Dundee are going to go in the top 6 again next season, Aberdeen and Hibs are the ones to watch out for. With Aberdeen, I can completely believe it because they've got a new manager, completely unknown entity to Scottish football, and you just don't know what's going to come from them. Whereas Hibs, I feel like I've seen this film before, and I think I know how it ends. So I'm not so concerned. I hope, not the hope that eat my words. I might very well eat my words, but for Hibs' sake, I hope they can just get their act together. But unfortunately, I just don't feel as convinced with Hibs as I do with the likes of an Aberdeen.
Yeah, and Scott, I think you will certainly know what Ethan's talking about there, because the sort of rinse and repeat method is something that Rangers have certainly been guilty of in recent years themselves. What's your sort of take on the Hibs? I mean, Lee's just raising here that he doesn't think the investment group helped. Obviously, the Black Knights Football Club, Bill Foley, coming out before the season, complaining that the board aren't listening, even though he's a minority stakeholder, and that he shouldn't have that influence. Do you think that plays a part in Hibs rebuild and everything they're doing? Because if you're getting cross wires all over the place, it can't be easy place, certainly for a rookie manager to get going.
No, it can't be, but I think the problem Hibs have had is the recruitment. The recruitment's been poor for a long time. Listen, I know about recruitment and Rangers. Recruitment's been poor for a long time, and Hibs is probably worse than us. Like a bin fire you put out and it just comes out again. I just don't see where they're going to go. I think you look at their squad of players, and there's some decent players there, but they can't perform. And David Gray's got a very hard job, and you don't want to get to Christmas and sack him, and then they bring somebody else in who's got the same players there, and he's going to have the same issues. So Ethan mentioned that they've sacked a few managers very quickly. I know Lee Johnson got a wee bit longer, but Lee Johnson was kind of going a bit loopy, wasn't he? He was running out of things to say in press conferences, and he was getting people's backs up, and then they brought in the Australian guy, Montgomery, and he tried to play good football, but he didn't have the players to do it, so he wanted to change his methods. So that was the problem. And then David Gray's come in, not very experienced. Listen, David Gray could have kept here still, but brought in somebody with a bit of experience to work alongside him. It might have worked better, like Hearts done it with, they brought in, I can't remember the boy's name now, but he's now in the backroom staff with Naismith. He was a Preston manager at one point. So they brought him in, he helped out a bit, and then obviously Naismith got the job permanently, but I think he needs a good staff around about him. I don't know if he's got that, David Gray, but Hibs recruitment's been very poor. Very, very poor. And I know they rely a lot on Martin Boyle, which they can't always do because he is getting older, he has injury issues and stuff, and I just don't think they're a good side. Stuart, I don't think they're a good side last season. I don't see any hint it's going to improve them today. I mean, I watched a bit of the game today because obviously I stay in Paisley, and my dad's a St Mirren fan, so you usually keep an eye on them. And I thought, when you look at the St Mirren side, it's night and day. St Mirren will finish in that top six again, without a doubt. St Mirren are a very, very good side, and Stevie Robinson's been backed, not with a lot of money, but he's been backed with what he wants to do at the club. And you can see they're in a high with beating European victory the other night. And then he started today, and all of them are going to beat Hibs because St Mirren are flying. And the recruitment's been great for having not a lot of money because you're out and bought players who are coming in to prove a point. They're good professionals. And I think Hibs have to go along the way St Mirren went and just don't always need money, but you need people who can spot talent. And I think that's where Hibs struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's Frank McAvoy, wasn't it? That
yeah, Frankie McAvoy, aye.
Smith. And Jenna, I want to touch on St Mirren a little bit as well because, like I say, I can't. Sometimes I think the bad side of the game gets talked about a lot more than the good. You know, Hibs are struggling, so that's what's going to get a lot of the attention. But like Kerr said, you know, Stephen Robinson is done a fantastic job at St Mirren. They're signing players that fit the team. Obviously, Sean Rooney has been fantastic for them already. Gogic in the last couple of years for them, I think, has been tremendous. He's been completely overlooked, I think, in a couple of, maybe going too far saying maybe being nominated for a Player of the Year award, but I think he has been that key to the St Mirren side. Great result in Europe already coming into the season, and a 3-0 win over Hibs, which, you know, we don't know how Hibs are going to look later on in the season. This could be a big result for St Mirren, and it just seems to be that both clubs are sort of on completely opposite trajectories at the moment.
No, definitely. Every time we're losing St Mirren as well, I miss Stephen Robinson more and more every single week. Losing him was one of the worst things that happened to us, and I'm glad he's doing well at St Mirren, but I can't help but feel better about it because I miss him. He's one of the best managers I've seen Mull have in recent years. The work he's doing at St Mirren, we can't touch on it, he is getting back, and likes the fact he's got Keith Lasley working alongside him as well. He really cares about the community. The club's been growing massively in terms of community efforts as well as on the pitch. I can't say a bad thing about St Mirren. I'm dying to, but I can't, because not only are they getting results on the pitch, they're doing well in Europe, which was unheard of for St Mirren. I can't remember what that was. I was talking about it with one of the guys I work with because he's a St Mirren fan. I think the last time they were in Europe was when Alex Ferguson was involved with St Mirren, and you're talking well before I was born for that one, and I'm 22, so do the maths with that one. But honestly, I can't sing St Mirren's praises loud enough, and I'm going to sound like a complete utter traitor by saying that, but the truth's the truth. I can't fault them.
The last time someone in Europe they played, I think it was KVRSK Mechelen for Belgium. I only know that because I was there with my dad that night, and I think that was 82, maybe 83, I could be wrong, or maybe 87 or something. I think it was. I was in the 80s anyway. Yeah, it was in the 80s. He won the Scottish Cup in 87, so it may have been after that, but that was the last time we were in Europe, so it's fantastic achievement. Listen, I was working all night till 8 o'clock, and where I work in Paisley, all St Mirren fans were gathered just round the corner, and I heard them with their drums and that, and they were marching to St Mirren Park for the game. So Paisley's buzzing because of what they're doing, and it's good to see.
Yeah, it's when they won the Scottish Cup. I only know that because they beat Dundee United in the final. My best friend's uncle's a St Mirren fan as well, and I want to say it was 87, 88. They must have been. Because either way, it was between us and St Mirren, the European race last season. It was like a European drought was going to come to an end, and I said, if it's not going to be us, I'm glad it's going to be them, and they fully deserve it. They were excellent last season, and I still kind of feel they don't get the respect they deserve because, like we said, there's a lot of club profiling. People say, it'll be Hibs, Aberdeen, and that'll be taking those spots again. As a unit, St Mirren look much more gelled, much more ready to compete than the ones aforementioned. So, that's the team to beat.
Absolutely. And moving on to the final game of the weekend for us so far, we've obviously got one more to come tomorrow. Celtic Kilmarnock, the champions, kicking off in style, Jenna, really beating Kilmarnock 4-0. And to be honest, I think at times if it wasn't for Robbie McCrory, it could have been a lot more. Celtic finished something ridiculous. I think it was like 32 shots. I think Kyogo had about 6 shots in the first 20 minutes. It was an absolute rampage at times. And Kilmarnock obviously coming off the back of a very, very difficult time. Belgium, where they narrowly obviously dropped down to the Conference League. But what's your sort of early take on Celtic? Because they, Brendan Rodgers, I'm sure, still wants signings in the door as well. It's game one, but can anyone look past Celtic for this title?
I don't think so, to be honest. And no disrespect, obviously, to Rangers or that, but I just don't think they're going to be up for the fight this season, to be honest. After seeing the pre-season friendlies, I know it wasn't a full Man City team that was out on display, but the fact they got such a strong result against them and the likes of Haaland and Jack Grealish have played, I think that speaks volumes. I did quite enjoy, not going to lie, watching a bunch of American TikTokers discovering Kyogo and Celtic for the first time and be like, wow, this is how you guys play soccer. Honestly, made my day try to watch their analysis of the games, but they are a force to be reckoned with. I've said this for a while now. Rangers needs to really step up because I can see Celtic going on another 7 or 8 league title run. If it happens, I don't have a horse in the race. Fair play. If it doesn't happen, fair enough. But they're going to absolutely storm it. They need a couple more signings, as Ben Rodgers said, just so they can actually challenge in the Champions League or Europa League if they end up dropping down. That is where Celtic's weakest point is, and they need to nail that on the head. Because it's one thing saying that they qualify for Champions League every year, they win the league, they don't do anything when they're there. I don't know if I'm speaking as just someone who gets to see their team play often in Europe. It's more of a novelty when it's likes of Motherwell, but I'd much rather my team hardly play in Europe but do well when they're there than play every year and fall flat on their face every single time. I'll give Rangers their credit there. They're usually better in Europe, but it just seems to be Rangers' shortfalls domestically, Celtic counteracts beautifully, and vice versa. Celtic's shortfall in Europe, Rangers counteracts beautifully. It's kind of hard not to thought one without the other, unfortunately. But as it just comes down to it, Brendan Rodgers does need some backing because that has been an issue with Celtic for a long time, is the lack of backing when it comes to signings. And that's with Matt O'Reilly and trying to I've actually forgot his name now that we're talking about this. But the young guy was on loan and there's talks about him coming back. Maybe he's not, maybe he is. Norwich guy. It's just a shambles. They really need to straighten things out.
Yeah, Adam Ida, yeah.
That's
yeah,
his
absolutely.
name. Yeah.
And Scott, I mean, hard to argue with anything Jenna said there. Lee's obviously saying they're a very well coached team. Brendan Rodgers has been around. He's done it. He's done it in the Premier League. He's done it at Celtic previously as well. Replacing Joe Hart or Kasper Schmeichel seems to be a shrewd bit of business. Obviously, an older keeper, but one that's captain in Denmark and from all early stages. Or I never watched Kasper Schmeichel every week in the Premier League or anything, but he certainly seems to be a better keeper with the ball at his feet. So he was helping start attacks a lot more quickly this than previously under Joe Hart, who sometimes you felt like you could maybe get something out of him when the ball was at his feet if you put a bit of a press on. In terms of Celtic needing more, I mean, to think that it's 4-0 and they weren't troubled too much and they've still got a defence that could probably be upgraded outside of Cameron Carter-Vickers, although Liam Scales is certainly trying to do his best to stop any notion of him being the one to be replaced. Do you see that squad getting any weaker for Rangers to have any shot at them, or do you think it's only upwards for them?
No, Stuart, Rangers are only going to catch Celtic this season unless Rangers invest heavily, which won't happen. Celtic are a good side. They're a good side to watch if you want to watch them. If when you play against them, it's no great. It's no fun, especially going to Celtic Park or Parkhead, because you're going there, your back's against the wall, and if you concede very early, it could end up being a doing. So they'll probably win the league with quite a few points this season, like I say, unless Rangers upgrade, which I don't think they will. But it's European games the Celtic fans are looking forward to because they have to improve. But I think it's hard for any Scottish team in the Champions League. It's a massive gap. And when you having to bring in players to the Champions League level, you have to pay them top dollar. And we can't afford, no team in Scotland can afford that. You're having to pick guys that, you're paying guys a lot of money just to come and play in Scotland. So if you want the better ones, they're not going to come up here and play, even if you're in Champions League. So I think Celtic into group stage, which they're already in, but get maybe into a round after that is an achievement. I don't think they can go any further. They're probably going to have to do what Rangers do and maybe drop down to Europa, where you're up against teams that maybe are a better chance against. I've seen Rangers do in the past few seasons, and you get a result and get into finals there. I think that's our level now in the SPL. I don't think in Champions League, I think that's too far afield for teams up here. I think Europa League, Conference, I think you can get to them and you can maybe get a chance of getting to a final and maybe win it, but I don't think in Champions League is touchable for Scottish teams.
No, and we will come on to Kilmarnock and touch them just before we sort of tie things up. But Ethan, in terms of Celtic's European hopes and expectations, do they hinge a lot on Matt O'Reilly staying at the club? There's obviously been so much talk about him leaving. There's now talk about whether or not Celtic can get him to stay on for one more season. I don't think his leaving will impact them domestically too much, but in terms of competing at the highest level, players like Matt O'Reilly are few and far between, really.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that for any team, really. Take away a key player, of course, it'll damage them. It will absolutely damage them. And he's one that's attracting major attention elsewhere, which I think kind of speaks volumes of what kind of a player you're dealing with in that regard. And for me, I remember looking at Celtic last season and thinking that midfield three of O'Reilly, McGregor, and Atati. I thought you get them all playing on the day, and it's not even just the fact they'll steamroll Scottish teams, but you think if they could just on the day in a European game, it could be frightening. And they've got a great manager in Brendan Rodgers as well. You mentioned him being at the high end level in Liverpool. It doesn't get much higher than that. You remember, he was only a game away from winning the Premier League. So he knows what it takes to get players playing at the highest level performance. So they've certainly got their work out for them if O'Reilly leaves. I kind of get the feeling that with buying Bernardo, that there is maybe a sort of feeling that he's maybe the ready-make replacement. And what was quite bizarre with him was they seemed to trust him in the European stage, but not so much domestically. So I wonder if maybe their thinking was they can maybe brew him into the Scottish game, let him marinate a little bit in the Scottish leagues before the opening comes up with O'Reilly leaving. And if that proves to be the case, it could prove to be a tremendous business on their part. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, if you want to compete, ideally you want to keep all your best players together. And if you can get Ida as well, for me, that'd be a great capture for them. But like I say, it's all kind of if and buts, because it seems to be that they've got the work out for them either way, keeping a hold of these players and recapturing these players. Yeah, but certainly as it stands in the Premiership, I can't see beyond them for winning the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, if the rumours are anything to be believed by, and I don't even think they're rumours anymore because I think he's been disciplined by Norwich. Adam Eder is certainly trying everything within his power to make that move happen. So I don't think, I imagine by the end of August, something will have moved on with that transfer. Jenna, moving on to Kilmarnock then, was this just a little bit too much too soon for them? You know, obviously midweek over in Belgium, that was a tough 90 minutes for them. And although they were backs to the wall for the majority of it, they did then come out and they created a lot of chances, so it sapped a lot of energy in the legs. I know they had a bit of a makeshift defence today. You know, it was sort of on a hide into nothing going to Celtic Park. Probably, you know, the toughest game you could have given them, certainly after a European venture.
No, definitely. And what makes it even probably harder is the fact it was Flag Day. The Celtic fans will have all been full of adrenaline, really cheering the boys on from the start. I saw some pictures of the tifos that they had. I have to give the Green Brigades or whatever faction it is that creates those types of things, it did look absolutely cracking to watch, to be honest. The atmosphere does play a big part in Celtic's success, I think, to be honest. And anyone that won't acknowledge that, I think, is just lying to themselves. To be honest, Kilmarnock never had a chance today. Flag Day, they've just came out of that European game. Their legs will be tired. They've had a lot to have been asked from them because obviously it was the 2 legs for the European game. To be honest, they had absolutely no chance, but I'm not going to judge them harshly when losing 4-0 against Celtic. If they were playing Ross County today, then maybe, no offence obviously to Peter in the chat, but if we were playing like them and lost 4-0, I'd be like, right, okay, what's going on there? But it's just one of the ones you need to take in the chin, to be honest. They need to focus now that they've dropped out of the Conference League. How far can they go in that? That makeshift defence we talked about, resting a couple of players, bring them on later on in the game. I see nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, maybe this is the pessimist in me, I don't know. I personally just see games against Rangers and Celtic as over glorified training match, especially away from home. I don't see anything wrong with what Kilmarnock's done. They've tried, they've put the shift in, but at the end of the day, it was never going to work out for them. Never on a month of Sundays.
Yeah, and Scott, as we bring things to a close in, I mean, Kilmarnock obviously back off this Thursday, aren't they? They're hosting Tromsø at home. Then it's St Johnstone before they then fly out to Tromsø away. We saw Vassell got pulled off early, well, early-ish for Vassell. Danny Armstrong started on the bench. There was maybe some rumours that Danny Armstrong is preparing himself for a move to Bolton Wanderers. Where are you seeing sort of Kilmarnock? Was this just sort of a let's just make sure we get in and out of Celtic Park with no injuries because we've got bigger fish to fry?
Well, I think Derek always wants to go and try and get a result of some kind. He's that type of manager, but it is difficult for him. They've not got a massive squad of players. And when you take out some of the first team, the players he put in aren't the same. They're similar players, but not the same technical, or not the same players to give the same performances. So I think he knew he was going to struggle today, but I think he went there with a team thinking, if they keep it tight, we can maybe nick some like they've done before. But Celtic were that good today, so I think that was one of the issues, and they didn't really give Kilmarnock a chance. But Derek's probably thinking we've got Thursday night, and then we've got the league game, and then we've got another European game. It's hard when you look at a big Scottish shirt. It's hard for teams like that because the fans love European football, and I know a lot of Kilmarnock fans are talking about being in Bruges and then the next one coming up, and they've not done this for a long time, so they're enjoying this. But obviously, the league is a bread and butter, and they don't want to go off to too bad a start because they finished really well last season. They take them into Europe, so they probably want to do the same again this season. So I think Derek will get them there. But it's a hard first game for them. It's a hard first game for anybody going up there. When Jenna said they're getting raising the flag and stuff like that. But Kilmarnock probably went there with, I'm not saying confidence, but went there knowing they've done it before. But Celtic just blew them away at the end of the day. So Derek just has to move on and look forward to the European game.
Yeah, absolutely. And final thoughts then, Ethan. I mean, looking on to your own clubs, next game, a tough game, and it's what I said early on in the season that I think most clubs in the Premiership, maybe outside Rangers and Hibs, have signed very, very well. It seems that it certainly seems to be one of the better seasons that's going to be ahead of us in terms of the quality of the league. What's your sort of early thoughts on Hearts coming over to Dens Park?
Well, that was kind of the first thing we said at full time of the Derby. It's like, oh great, now we're going to play against a side that managed to block out Rangers for a full 90 minutes. And I'd seen a post elsewhere that showed the depth of the Hearts squad, like a team of players that would be considered their subbies, and you think it's just they've got so much strength there. We entertained Hearts very well across all our games last season. We beat them once at Dens. In the other games, we got beat, I think, 3-2, Tynecastle, and Dens again before a resounding 3-0 defeat at Tynecastle in the split. We were completely out of steam by the time the split came. But those 3-2 defeats were very much took the game. The Hearts were 2-0 up in one of them. Probably should have done a lot better than the one at Dens, to be honest. There was a bit more controversy to that, but the point being, we can feel that at home we can take on anyone, but certainly Hearts just look like they went from strength to strength. And I maybe touched on the fact that they signed Malachi Boateng earlier. Again, pardon me, sorry, I've had hiccups today. Yeah. He's a fantastic capture for that, especially on a permanent deal. Like I say, he was one of our, if not our best player the first half of last season. I know exactly the kind of quality he brings. He's more than just a defensive midfielder. He gets involved in all areas of the park, even offensively. He's not particularly an attackingly driven player, but he just knows how the right way to cast the ball, to retain possession. And he was absolutely pivotal for us. He was the heartbeat of our team at one point. And yeah, looking across, they just seem to have gotten stronger. That was a team that, third place. They're on their own island last season. They've only gotten stronger. So I'm very cautious about them coming over the Dens because I think they'll mean business, and that's a tremendous result to start the season. I know it's easy to look at Rangers and talk about how Rangers weren't at full speed or how they've not managed to implement all the players they would have wanted to. But at the end of the day, Hearts took on a team, one of the best teams in Scotland, and they managed to hold them out, and they've got defensive momentum. Every manager I've ever spoken to says defensive momentum is 100% a thing. So they'll be coming full of confidence, and we'll be wanting to set the record straight. We'll want a better result than we got today. So now look on to the first game at Dens Park this season. We had to play a lot of League Cup home games at Glebe Park. So hopefully the pitch will be in nice nick, and we can maybe avoid that big tasty fine that the SFA, SPFL are rubbing their hands at the prospect this season. But yeah, no, certainly Hearts are one of the teams that I look at and I think, I'd rather not play them.
That's fair enough. Right, we will call it to an end there. Thank you so much to everyone that joined in the chat. Honestly, it blew our expectations away. We were expecting like maybe 5 or 10 in here. I think at the highest we had sort of 75 watching across YouTube and Twitter. So as a live audience, that is amazing. Thank you so much for that, and all the comments, of course. Thank you to Scott, Ethan and Jenna on a weekend where the champions stamped their authority in the first match. Rangers rebuild starting with just one new signing. St Mirren running riot in Paisley, and Dundee Derby serving us up a right treat. The early 0-0s are gone and out the way, and it followed nothing but goals today. And the best part is we've got more to come tomorrow evening at McDermott Park. Have a great evening.